welcome to this project applicant seminar organized by the Central Baltic Program. We are about to have our fifth call, which is actually already announced. And this is why we are having this seminar here today, to run some things through with you, mainly learning things about preparing an application and a good project in general. And we will also provide you guidance for many practical issues regarding building a work plan and budget and etc. So we are also looking forward to a lively discussion, so please interrupt whenever, or raise your hand whenever you have a question. Due to the fact that we have live streaming here, people also following online, welcome also to you. We should always remember to use the microphone, so whenever you have a comment, wait for a while and the microphone will be brought to you. The audience will not be filmed, only us here at the front, so you will not be filmed, but your questions will be heard. Who are we? Who is the Central Baltic Program? Well, today we are here with a bunch of people. My name is Samu Numminen. I work as a project manager at the Joint Secretariat, and my specific responsibility is Priority 2, which includes the 4 specific objectives which are concerning the environmental sector, namely tourism, coastal marine planning, urban planning, and eutrophication mitigation issues mainly. Then we have a few colleagues here. I would ask you to stand up maybe, and I will maybe present you as we don't have the other microphone now here, but it's okay. This is Ivo Volt. Ivo is the project manager for Priority 3, working with the transport issues. And then we have Pille Laaksonen, Priority 4, social inclusion, education issues. And then Ülari, Alamets regarding business development under Priority 1. And then we also have a couple of our contact points here. Maybe you can also stand up. We have a contact point Estonia, Ingel, and contact point Åland, Ester. So this is us, but who are you? I have an assumption that most of you are from Latvia, so let's raise hands. Who is from Latvia? No, I think that was about correct. What about Sweden? Do we have Swedish people here? Yes? Still a few. Nice, welcome. And Estonia? Well represented. Thank you. And then, apart from Esther, is anyone here from Åland? Not this time. And then Finland, finally. Okay. This actually looks quite equal, I would say. So nice to have all of you here. We are talking a lot about these priorities. They are maybe not so clear for the applicants, although they are very clear for us. But I will still ask one more round of questions about the priorities. So those of you who are thinking of applying funding from Priority 1, business development issues, please raise your hands. Quite popular. What about the environmental priority, Priority 2, tourism, etc.? Nice interest also. And transport projects, small ports. Good. And then finally the social inclusion and education. Yeah, this also looks quite equal. Yeah. One more question. Raise your hands if you have experience from previous Central Baltic projects, working in a project, or this is the reality at this point of the program period. So most of you have had something to do with the program at least. Some practicalities about today. The program goes like this. We have the first presentation about the intervention logic. So what are we trying to achieve and what do we want the projects to achieve for the program. Then we will talk about partnerships and work plan development. Then we will break for lunch. Lunch is served and on the other side of the reception. If you have been staying in last night here, you know where breakfast was served. This is the same place. And then after lunch we will talk about budget and other related issues and finalizing and submitting the application. Then we will have a small slot for discussion, but as I said, the discussion is open all the time, so feel free to interrupt and ask whenever you feel like it. Then we still have coffee at the end, and some of you have booked for consultations. Then we will do those consultations, I guess partly here and partly in the next rooms on the other side of the corridor. And that's it. I hope you will find it interesting. Many of you, of course, seem to already have experience on these issues, but it's always good to refresh. And maybe just one more thing. Toilets are also found on the other side of the reception. There are signs, so follow those and you'll find the way. Then we will switch to Ülari, who will talk about the intervention logic.
Is it like this? Thank you, Samu, and to continue from the expression Samu had that those priorities may not be always clear for you, then the mission or the goal of my presentation and talk is actually to make those priorities more clear to you. And I have to say that the information I'm going to provide to you is not going to be much or not at all different from the information we have provided in previous call project applicant seminars about intervention logic. So there are no major changes in the intervention logic or the logic of priority specific objectives we are working on. Only perhaps the additional bits of information are related to lessons learned or some experience accumulated, and that can be also taken as actually mutual things. So I think you are also the ones who are having the experience and can, if you wish, to contribute to this session. But to start, perhaps the first thing I would like to emphasize, it is so much in everywhere in talks and in slides and in written, this result orientation for 2014-20 period. In our context, I just want to emphasize that we take it seriously. It's not something to satisfy the European Commission. It is for real, and that is very much actually in the question. We ask from you, who you are potential project owners, whether your project idea elaborated to the full project will contribute to the results of one or another specific objective, or in general to the program. So this is a result orientation for us, and we take it seriously. And as I said, hopefully after going through one by one and trying to give the most important information about each of our intervention niches or specific objectives, hopefully it will become for you clear which of those available specific objectives in our program would be potential match to your project idea. Or it would also be equally important result, in our opinion, if you will find out and conclude after this session that there is no match. From our viewpoint, and it's also based on a feedback from applicants before, it is also valuable if you know in advance that there is no match, and you will not invest more resources, time and money in elaborating in detail projects. So, and rather than trying to look for other programs. So this is, in that sense, a very important step covered with this session to make you to understand that there is a match between your potential project idea and specific objectives of our program. And just to explain a little bit this logic, sometimes people are reading, and we certainly haven't been able to write down everything and in different dimensions, this logic of intervention. How it works actually about the specific objectives and result indicators and the baselines and target values, and now we are on a program level. So basically the point of that slide and what I want to say here is that actually they all work together, those concepts. So the name of specific objective defines the intervention niche or area theme. But it's not all. In addition to the specific objective, each specific objective has a result indicator, and this result indicator has the baseline where we were and the target where we want to get as a program. And for us, projects are the only means or tools actually motivating the projects to come to apply, choosing the best projects, and then financing and following the implementation. When you achieve results, this is the only way how we can achieve the program results, specific objective by specific objective. So that is a very clear, very strong linkage, and that's why we really strong effort to explain those specific objective logics, and we do our best to enforce that approach, to choose only those projects which contribute to specific objectives, and not only to choose, but also to go on with fully monitoring the implementation of the projects. So what is the menu, or what is available? You perhaps all know that there are altogether 11 specific objectives grouped based on those four large priority areas. And for fifth call, the good news is that all specific objectives are open for application. All 11 specific objectives are open for application. And maybe just one more comment, which is universal or throughout all specific objectives. Those specific objectives are designed very much in a way that you can target actually the contributing to the only one specific objective. It's nowhere said in the program manual, program document in that way, but we haven't met in a real life any projects which can realistically target to contribute to more than one specific objective. And it comes from a logic that those defined specific objectives are indeed very specific and different from each other. And if you try to put together two projects into one project, so basically then we say to you that you have two projects and there is no clear focus for your project. So that's the logic. And also you see on the picture there are the horizontal principles, two horizontal principles, but those horizontal principles are not equal, or they are not the specific objectives. You can't apply from those horizontal principles. Logic of applying those horizontal principles is rather that the aspects or important things which are related to whatever, to the ICT or carbon emissions free world are put into the specific objectives logics. So there are aspects, there are emphases, there are some criteria which are inside of each specific objective. So there is no way to separately target or to apply for horizontal principles. So now I tried to go through all specific objectives one by one, just saying something which perhaps with one or two sentences should characterize best what kind of contribution is expected from the projects we are likely to finance, and then there is going to be few perhaps important aspects or definitions, then few lessons learned, and I will ask actually my colleagues, responsible priority project managers, if they have after each priority something to add, each specific objective something to add, and also to describe one ongoing project very briefly, a very specific objective. So that's layout. And please free to intervene quickly, but we are not going to give much time for discussion in that moment. Otherwise, we will stuck and will not be able to go through all 11. So starting with specific objective 1.1. This is our contribution, our niche to intervene in the area of new business development. And basically, if to try to put it into the one sentence, that is a joint business development process with mixed joint target group, which leads to the creation of new joint Central Baltic companies. Emphasis is in joint. Perhaps what we now, after having already had the four calls, can emphasize here is that this jointness aspect as a key should start as early as possible. But before that, perhaps some comments also about the potential or sectors. In a real life, you should be aware that actually in some sectors, subsectors, it is easier to create those new joint companies, and in some sectors, perhaps especially in the area of old economy, it is rather challenging, or you may even argue that not really realistic or possible. In this specific objective, even it is new business development specific objective, here is one exception, one relevant big exception, and it relates to archipelago island area, territory where new business models and directions of already established, older than new companies are equal to new companies. So basically, if there is the agricultural company in island archipelago area, and that company is going to introduce the accommodation or some new service, new business direction, that new business direction, and then meaning that company will be counted as a new joint company. So this is a big exception for island archipelago areas. Otherwise, the emphasis is certainly on the more, let's say, value-added, knowledge-intensive segments of economy or business sectors. New enterprises is important definition. New enterprises are defined here as the up to 2 years from start of operations, flexible a little bit, not from a start or moment of registration, but the start of operations. And joint is important question, always asked, always relevant to keep in mind what has to be achieved as a product of a joint process of new business development. It can be the key team inside a company, it can be a joint management, or it can be the most clear case, the joint ownership of that new company. From at least 2 different the Central Baltic member states. And the main approach here is actually to work throughout via the expert, experienced, capable intermediate organizations who have experience in the field of new business development. So basically, them to join forces and to put together joint the new business development activity plan and implement it to the mixed target group of entrepreneurs, mixed as early as possible would be my key word, and also bridge to the lessons learned. What have been the lessons learned in regard of this specific objective, where we are targeting then those new joint Central Baltic businesses? It is extremely difficult to create them. They are not just coming out, especially they are not coming out if you are trying to mix already established startup companies and you organize few get-togethers or you organize few joint seminars for them. Why? Because they already have their kind of direction, their culture, their attitudes, and of course, even if our region is small, there are differences in how we behave, how we do business. So this is really challenging and extremely important, and that's why I emphasize actually that this, so to say, mixing or trying to put together and creating those joint companies has to start as early as possible. Already, if to think ideal case, it would be already in a process of choosing those potential participants of those business development processes, asking them whether they are interested about international business development or not. Then be realistic about promised results. That has been the thing to learn. And yes, indeed, in some sectors, it is certainly more realistic to create those new joint companies. And if I am to show one perhaps project, and it's rather to also direct you to the already quite rich actually source of information, which is on our website, centralbaltic.eu, our projects database, where you can find priority by priority, specific objective by specific objective, all our projects, our portfolio. So and there are the short descriptions, and I think those are actually good to go through before finalizing your project application or really still thinking that to what direction to go. But maybe my just short example would be related to the CB4 Game Camps project, which is about gaming, and this is between Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and the idea in this project is actually to do a new joint business development, to create new joint companies in area of gaming, internet gaming mainly. And why it's good example? It's good example that because of already our experience learned and perhaps also the readiness of the partners and the sector-specific things, they were the ones actually who started mixing the potential participants target group from a very early phase. Basically, everyone they took into the project activities was already informed and ready to become a potential team member of international team, and later on that team to be developed to the new business, new joint business. So, and of course, real life is in a way, and they are well actually. Well on the way of achieving their targeted number of new joint businesses, which is good and promising and shows that approach can work. And yes, I think I would stop here about specific objective 1.1, or just to repeat and remind the starting point, beginning, that this is new business development, but it should be done together via complex activity plan to make people who are not yet entrepreneurs the enterprises, and in a way that they are going to be joint businesses. The thing I wanted to say is, even and the example also with CB4 game camps is that even if you do your best, you take in, for example, 30 or 50 people from 3 different countries, they will never become all joint businesses. There will be always a hopefully nice part of the participants who are going to be ready to become joint businesses. There are going to be one part who are just becoming the new businesses, which is very valuable result as well. And there is always possibility that some people who enter to the business development program will end up of understanding that they are not going to become entrepreneurs. And that's fine. That's quite natural and logical business development process as it is in the new business development world. So, anybody based on that information still interested about specific objective 1.1? Not clear. Let's move on. Second in a menu, in priority 1, is specific objective 1.2, more entrepreneurial youth. If to try to say with one sentence something, what would be that? What would be that contribution our program tries to give with this specific objective? Then this is about the future. This is about the future, new generations of potentially global, competitive, Central Baltic businesses, companies. Why? Because here we are not dealing with real companies. Here we are dealing with business simulations. They can be named as a student companies or a mini companies or some other name, but they should be business simulations according to the main principles of business plan development. And those business simulations should be implemented mainly for a target group who are under the age of 18. So they are the age group who are not yet in the actually main parts of their participation time, even eligible to create real legal businesses. And the sharp kind of focus of those projects, business simulation projects for youth, is here that those simulations called then as student companies should lead to these joint student companies. In regard definitions, as I already said, the young generation, young people under the age of 18. There have been the projects and questions, real life practical things. What happens if the young people enter into the project activities they are 18 and during the project activities they become 19, or in even some cases most participants are 17, 16, but there are few who are 19. So we have been actually saying that this is flexible, but the main principle is that main target group, so to say, translated then to the perhaps the most numerous group of participants should still be in those activities, youth under 18. But there can be few people who are becoming elder during the process, or some younger people, or even a little bit older people, real entrepreneurs. If the methodology described by the project foresees it, will be mixed with those young people and also participating in a business simulation. That's fine for us, but it has to be pre-described and as the way of doing those business simulations. Yes, and then once again, to be clear about this joint aspect, it should be then this joint business simulation, and it has to be mixed nations team formed for business simulation under adult supervision. And it is not a legal entity according to business law, and there is no expectations that those student companies should become real businesses later. So this is for a future. It is a learning. It is for young people really to become familiar with this business world. And in a later life, they can use it becoming a real business people, being the better citizens, being a more active citizen, whatever. That's not kind of related strictly to that. And perhaps something in that also what can be said as a lesson learned would be really the emphasis and attention on this business simulation methodology. So this methodology should be in place or described then if foreseen in a project in the early phases of a project implementation, and that methodology, how business simulations are created, how the student companies' business simulations are defined. This is important for us to be shared with us, and that's something we want to see before you start the real process of that. As example, perhaps I show the project which is covering all all Central Baltic countries, and it is the CBWEWB, Central Baltic Student Enterprises Without Borders, and this is the joint effort of junior achievement country regional organizations of all of our Central Baltic countries, and somehow it was the obvious and logical step forward for them. Junior Achievement Program is a global, international program already, and they have also done historically attempts to really make those international business kind of connections between student companies. Our niche we identified and which gave them opportunity to make this joint project, was that there were no actually joint Central Baltic student companies business simulations because of obvious reasons of lack of resources for mobility and putting those teams together and doing this process together. And that has worked in a way that basically junior achievement organizations had their methodology, how they have been creating those student and mini companies for decades, but now they just added these international aspects and the mobility of participating young people. And that worked out quite well. But even they, of course, had the project technically has ended in their activities already. But of course, they also experienced all those issues related to different cultures and attitudes and wishes and logics of thinking. So that has been a good experience, learning experience. So anybody in audience interested in looking forward towards specific objective 1, 2? No? Yes, maybe. Yeah, okay. Then let's move on. Next in the menu for priority 1 is if to put it into the one sentence, this is something we do, our contribution as Central Baltic Program to do export, to help our companies, smaller, medium, even larger companies to the new markets. So this is basically the export specific objective, and with clear focus that there should be the participants who are the real companies, and those real companies should benefit from the project activities in a way that they get the business, they get to those new markets which have been targeted. And here is one kind of precondition which is relevant. What here we are looking is not only this export activity doing together, but export activity, export projects which are based on the already existing cooperations. There should be clusters in place in each participating country. But yes, to the perhaps few important definitions or aspects to take into account here. Real life experience shows that the potential is very much which actually reflects the strength of our Central Baltic region countries' economies, but still it is in a way that in some sectors the entering to the new markets is somewhat easier. Some let's say sectors it may take much longer because of sector-specific aspects, and some goods are really difficult to get to some markets. So the sectoral aspects is important to consider. It is the part of always our session evaluation. So we know that the different sectors have different logics for exporting, and there are different actually times needed and different actually whatever regulatory environments related to different sectors. And there's some sectors, especially in a service areas like tourism or services related, can be finances or the movies, film. They behave differently in a tourism area. Actually, you are not taking your restaurants or accommodation to the new markets, but you are bringing those visitors and tourists to our region, and that counts as the export of services. So in a way that services consumed, services used, bought in our countries by those foreign visitors are export. So that's the difference in a sector wise. New markets are defined as markets outside of European Union, European Free Trade Area. So it should be the challenging. And then this cluster thing, there is the precondition that those complex export projects, new market entry projects, should be undertaken by the organizations who best represent the existing clusters. That clusters are defined as the established cooperations between similar or complementary businesses and some involvement of research and development institutions, activities. So that's important. So basically, the first thing I always say, the starting point here is the find your cluster, or make sure that you have a cluster in place. So if that step is done, so you have a cluster in your country and there is another complementary similar cluster in by nature or with objectives, aims, then the potential is there. Then start discussing, start negotiating the interest, where to go, how should this good complex activity plan to enter the market look like, and so on, what are responsibilities. And yes, what I said already, projects should be sharply focused into the new market entry active activities, not finding out, not doing only market studies, not finding out what is there in the market, and not training only companies, bringing some lectures, but doing active new market entry activities like business visits, visiting the trade fairs, buying in, if needed, the target market expert services for door opening, all that kind of active export new market entry activities. But what is not allowed, what you can't do, is to establish any kind of permanent distribution networks. And of course, what you can't do or what you can't transfer to final benefiting companies is the real money grants or financial services loans. So basically, you can do activities which are named, they are services, basically, they are services to the benefiting companies. Lessons. As I said already, perhaps the first also as a starting question would be, is a cluster cooperation, is a cluster in a place? And if the answer is yes, if it is double checked, then yes, you can really move on, and then this focus really on the active, real new market entry activities. In most sectors, experience shows that what is working is a general principle of focusing, rather to be able of choosing a